common question I get is how do I do those like paper cutout animations? So that'd be like this piece right here, or maybe like this piece over here. Unfortunately, there's not an easy answer, but I'll do my best even with my terrible explaining. So some disclaimers, my process is likely very bad and slow and unconventional. I never took any like formal classes, and I basically have my whole knowledge from minimal YouTube tutorial watching. I use a super old Blender version 2.79 because it just works best for my flow and it runs the best on my bad laptop. The new one makes it lag a lot. Most of the same functionality is still there, it just might be in a different spot is all. So let's get into it, shall we? I'm going to go over this piece because it's actually pretty simple compared to some of my other ones. There's only 4 main layers. Most of this is already animated in Procreate with the sort of line boil or wiggle animation that you see here. It's just that I want to export the different parts of it into 4 main sprite sheets, depending on what I want as like the layer. So right here is the flower layer because I want to copy paste these and animate it slightly. It's a pain to do in Procreate, so I'm just going to export that into Blender. Next we have the main focus layer here. Then we have the dancers that I plan to move in a rotational manner. And we also have the background piece. So each one has its own individual layer. To get a sprite sheet, I just take all the PNGs or the GIF file and then I just slap it into some sort of a sprite sheet maker website. Put your stuff here and then you'll get some nice sprite sheets that look like this. Now we get to Blender. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. I'll assume you have at least a little bit of Blender knowledge, but I suggest like poking around with it, maybe doing a couple of beginner tutorials about it. This is basically what this piece looks like without any of the materials on it. So the materials are what add the sprite sheet on top of these things. You can see the radial dancer part, and also there's one addition I did here, which is this black box. I just like the composition better if I put that right on top of it. Try to walk through the basic process starting just from a plain mesh here. So you want to open up your mesh menu with Shift A, in the old version at least, and then you will pick your plane. I like to rotate it so that it faces directly to the camera or to the Y plane. So -90, rotate the side, and now I can see it better. So from here, you want to add a new material to it. I'm just gonna pick one of the other ones for now, and I'll go through the material node tree. So here I'll pick material 2. And you want to make sure you're in the cycles render so you get that nice looking shadows and stuff when you render. Here we have the material setup for this thing. So you want to have a texture coordinate that goes into mapping. This mapping is what's going to allow you to later go through the sprite sheet frame by frame by manipulating the locations. So I'm going to set that back to 0 for now. And then image texture, you'll want to open up your texture there. Then you're going to want to plug this into a material mix shader with your principled BSDF and a transparent. And you probably just want to copy this because it can be a bit confusing. Just make sure this goes to there and this goes to there, and all those connections are all the same. Now comes the UV unmapping part. So once you got your material set up, you want to go to the UV image editor down here. You want to open up the sprite sheet that you assigned to your material, and then you want to go and unwrap your mesh. So I do just an unwrap, project from view. Since it's really simple, it's just a 2D plane, that's fine. And then you want to move your UV around so that it covers the area that you want. So if you want this little red guy, then we put the UV over him. And then when we actually animate this material, it'll go from here to this frame and back and forth. We use 3 different types of animation for this piece. So one is just a sprite sheet, changing the texture, moving it around. The other is called shape keys, and then the other one is a more traditional rigging. So to do that, to do a shape key, you want to click on the thing you want to move around, and then you go over here, and you want to go to this part, little triangle one. You can add your shape keys here. What shape keys do is they interpolate between 2 states of what this mesh looks like. So you want your base state, and then you want your key that you're going to change the value of. So you want to edit, and then now you're editing what this key will look like. So if I want him to rotate, I'll put it like that. So it's going to change to be in that rotation position, but it's going to interpolate it with the key so I can control it with this value here. So that makes it super easy to just go between two different states. If you want a bit more control, this is where the bones come in. So you want to Shift A, or whatever your hotkey is, go to your armature, and then grab a bone. This is your root bone. Since we're only animating a plane though, this is probably all you need. We're gonna want to highlight your character, or your sprite, and then parent it to your single bone, and do empty groups. Then you want to weight paint, and then since everything's gonna move with this one bone, we just have to make everything a value of 1. So I just hit invert here. And now, when you move this bone around, then your plane will move around with it, as you can see here. You can rotate it, you can move it around, you do all sorts of things, scale it up and down, whatever. We're going to move over to the animation. I like to use the dope sheet as visualizing the keyframes for everything, but I think also the graph editor and timeline should work as well. But don't quote me on that. This is just what I like using, and I'm used to it. So, what we have here, we have our little dancer guy. We're on frame 1 right now, down here. And what we want to do is hit I. And for this bone, you want to insert our keyframe. Boom, we have our keyframe made for this spot. Then we can go forward a bit in time. And then from here, we can rotate him a little bit and then add another keyframe. So if we go back and we hit play, then our guy is gonna do a little twirly, a little rotate. Oh, I don't like that, because why does it stop right there? You want it to be looping, right? So you want to highlight what you want to loop, hit Shift E, and then do a make cyclic F modifier. That's going to make it so that the motion will repeat after its keyframe is done. If you want it to move in a different way, because right now it interpolates in a Bezier format, you can do linear, so it goes straight in between, or constant, where it just sort of goes immediately to that position, which is useful for the stop frame animation and also for our keyframes for the sprite sheets. I'm going to make this animation a little bit nicer so he doesn't cut back immediately to that position. So I'm going to add another keyframe here at the end over here. There we go, it lines up with everything else. Clear, transformed, it's back at his original spot. I'm going to put in one more frame. There we go. Now it's 3 frames back and forth. Now the same frame method applies to both the sprite sheets and also the shape keys. It's the same sort of thought process. You want to go to your shape key, and to make a keyframe for this value, you just hover over it and press I, or your keyframe hotkey. So we can do 0, then we'll do 1, and then line it up so it's the same, put it back to 0. And you want to make that also looping, since it's going to just do it one time. So make sure that your keyframe for the shape keys, where is it? I can't find it. But once you find it, you just highlight it and then do a make cyclic F modifier with Shift E. I'll show off the way to do it on the material really quick. So you want to hover over here in the node editor for the material. And you want to change the X location, since the sprite sheet that we have changes frames when you go from left to right. So you just want to move that over to the right spot. I already have the keyframes in here, so it's 0, then I change it to 0.5. There we go. For the keyframe animation for this, it won't update automatically inside material viewport. You probably have to look at it only in rendered view. Otherwise, it doesn't show the keys changing. Another thing for the spray sheet animation is that you want to have it on constant interpolation so that it doesn't sort of like slide your texture across. It just does keyframe here, keyframe here, keyframe there. I'm gonna leave that guy to the side and just go through some rendering stuff. So you'll want to add in a light source, otherwise it'll be super dark in here. So I put in a sun, I already did it right here. And then you want to angle it, and you'll be able to see it better if I put it in rendered view. Angle it so that it's how you want it. So I put the shadows like that, so when you look at it head on, you can see a little bit of depth, but it's not too extreme. And then you want to also add in a camera view so that when you hit the render button, it knows what to look at. So I'll go back to texture. This is my camera. You can do Shift A, add in a new camera, and then move it and scale it how you want. If you're looking at it from a specific view and you want your camera to be the same, I bring up the menu for this and I do align camera to view. That's sort of quick and easy way to put the camera where you want it. Oh, I put the big camera there, so I'm gonna go back. There we go. And now you have your camera view right there. And you want to change it, you could change it to perspective or orthographic, change the scale, change the resolution here for what it outputs. Once you're all happy with that, all you have to do is hit the render animation, and then it's going to render from the start to the end value. And that might take quite a long time, so if I hit that, it might lag a lot. My poor computer, oh my goodness. You might want to get up and do something else if it takes this long for you. But it's going to put that all inside a temporary folder. It's going to be located in a directory, and then from there you have all your individual frames. You're going to want to put all of those inside your GIF maker of choice, be that GIMP or Photoshop or EasyGIF.com. I didn't really explain the keystrokes or menus well, sorry about that. I recommend just getting familiar with Blender in general again, and then reviewing the key steps, which is the transparent 2D plane materials, the shape keys, the bone rigging, and how to render and get your final image. What I do a lot of times is throw that final image inside of a video editor as well, so I can do a little bit of post-process magic to make it pop. So that's adding a little bit of sharpening, posturization, and maybe some like color changes, like upping the contrast or something. But that's totally up to you. I hope you found this at least a little bit helpful. Thank you for watching, and best of luck in your art journey. Thank you.